Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm in the North Country. My internet is not always good, but we delighted to have you here this evening. We in the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, believe that systemic racism is one of the interlocking injustices and that we all need to come together and be a part of the solution if we are to change the system that keeps racism in place. We will be holding a series of meetings this summer and fall devoted to examining racism. This series is open to anyone who believes there is no place for racism in our communities. And we are excited to begin the series with tonight's workshop led by Kimberly Quinn Johnson. Reverend Kimberly has served as minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Fork of Long Island since 2015. She has embraced the East End of Long Island and her congregation and is a sought after fixture in the community. Her perspective, insights, and actions have led to social justice initiatives and increased UU influence in the area. She's a welcomed, proactive force for change, and we are so delighted to have her with us tonight. Reverend Kimberly.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here. And it's a full 90 minutes, so I should just get us started. Um, and I have opening words to really get us started. Let's see. I have opening words and I have slides that I will be using, and I have to get myself organized so that I'm pressing the right button at the right time. Voila. Opening words from a friend and colleague, the Reverend Julian Soto. Some people are used to keeping rules. Don't cross the street when the light is red. Only sensible. It turns out that keeping rules isn't the same as keeping covenant, which asks us instead of keeping a bright light, to keep our promises. To what have we promised ourselves? To this moment, in this time and place, to this community, and even tenderly interconnected this planet. We promise ourselves to the idea that we are each and all human beings. We promise that there is something between us that we cannot tame and cannot measure. The, if you have a chalice, the chalice is a reminder that what flame we keep inside us cannot light the way. The light must spill to shine. The thing you must be is yourself, unadulterated, shedding the willingness to journey alone, as though you are made of something hard and unforgivable. You are human. You belong right here, right now. And together, we will chase away the sickness, the secrets, and leave only the open possibility that the future is a space of growth. I'm very happy to be with you this evening. So I have I think, a few goals of what I hope we'll accomplish by the end of this 90 minutes to do some sort of four parts. Some opening, which we're in the middle of, some talking about race and racism, understandings of where we are, and then some definitions and terms so that by the end of this evening and moving into your next conversation, there's some common ground of understanding and then some closing and wrapping up for the night. Some of you have already started to do this, to say in the chat who you are and where you're joining from. But if you haven't, now's a good time to do that, please. Okie dokie. Sag Harbor, Pier, Colton, Ossining, Plattsburgh. Okay. So we were expecting, and somebody is scribbling on my slide. I don't know how that's happening, but please don't do that. We were expecting a much larger group, which would have made I'm totally losing my words. An icebreaker, necessary and challenging. I think I'll still go ahead with what we had planned, or what I had planned, which is to, rather than have us all speaking for an icebreaker, to use our chat. So I'm going to ask you, we're going to try a thing called a chat storm. How that works is I'll ask you a question. You will put your answer in the chat, but don't hit enter. We want to give everybody a chance to get their answer into the chat. And then we'll all hit enter together. And let's see how this works. The first question. I think we have some people in the waiting room. Is it possible to disable the waiting room altogether?
I'll be happy to look into that.
Groovy. Okay, first question. How are you feeling? Just at the start, how are you feeling? Not thinking, feeling about this evening session talking about race. Take a few seconds, put your answer in the chat. And when we're all ready, hit send, hit enter. Excited, curious, hopeful, eager, thoughtful, open. Okay, this is a good start. Next question. What helps you learn in a difficult conversation? A word or a phrase. What will be helpful to you in a difficult conversation? Which race is sometimes a difficult conversation. And when we're ready, hit enter. Patience, time to pause, examples, listening. Okay, time to think. Okay. Next question. Don't hit enter yet. What quality do you hope to bring to this evening session? What are you bringing to this evening session? Let's give it a minute, not quite a minute. And if we're ready, hit enter. Curiosity, frustration, personal experience, patience and empathy, intentional presence, always lovely. Okay.
Why am I not?
Don't hit enter yet. One hope or aspiration for this evening session. Typing, but not hitting enter yet. What's your hope or aspiration for this evening session? And when you're ready, hit enter. Clarity, learning, growth. Learning, learning. Okay. Connection. All right, two more. Get ready, but don't hit enter. Complete the sentence. By the end of this session, I hope I ... By the end of this session, I hope I ... And we're ready. Hit enter. have a greater understanding, able to verbalize something more about racism, understand better, would be more aware of my own racism, can speak with more clarity. I'm clearer. All right, clarity and clearness. I hope we can do that. And last one. What's one word you associate with racism? Don't hit enter yet. Just getting it ready. One word you associate with racism. And when you're ready, hit enter. Power, fear, uninformed, hatred, privilege, destructive. Close down. Becca, it looks like your chats are still going to the waiting room.
Oh, I didn't see anybody in there. I'm sorry. I said disabled. Are you seeing people there now?
No, but I think when you go to your chat, if you can set it so that message to everyone instead of
Oh,
message
I
to
see
waiting
what
room.
you're saying.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries. All right. And oppression. Hegemony castle. I like that. Okay. These are good words. I especially like power. People who have heard me talk more than 3 times know that I love to talk about power. Um, and because what some people want is clarity, and I saw some words around vulnerability, and openness, I like to start with some group agreements. It's not a covenant because we don't have time to create a covenant together. But there are some agreements that I have used before that I hope will be agreeable to this group. I can't get my slides now to continue to advance. I'm not sure what's happening. Let's just do this. Voila. These I have pulled from emergent strategy. And so these are group agreements for emergent spaces from the author Adrienne Marie Brown. To listen from the inside out or the bottom up, what you feel in your gut matters. To engage tension, not indulge drama. We will disagree, that's fine. To think of this acronym WAIT. Why am I talking? We don't have a lot of time for talking, but you will have small groups, and so there will be more time for like actual talking. To make space and take space. If you are one who speaks a lot, maybe you want to hold back to hear what others have to say. And if you are one who doesn't speak much, please do offer your gifts to others. Confidentiality, to take the lesson, but leave the detail. To be open to learning. To be open to someone else speaking your truth. Building, not selling. To embrace a yes and rather than an either or approach. To value the process as much, if not more, than the outcome. And this is 90 minutes, so self-care and community care. If you need a break to stretch, to do a one bio function, please take that. I haven't built breaks into the 90 minutes because it's just so compressed. So if you need a break, please do take it. And this is being recorded, so there'll be a way to come back and collect whatever it is that you have missed. Is there anyone who feels like there's something here that you don't think you can agree to? Awesome. Well, then I'm going to move us on to think about how a way of being in space. There was a moment, and I don't know if we're still in it, when people would talk about needing safe space. I want to encourage us to think not quite about safe space, but about a brave or courageous space. And so I like this diagram here because it shows where we want to be. This green area in the middle Safe space, safety, comfort, everything is great. We feel fine. The red area, the danger zone, is when our conversation is getting so hot that it feels danger. There is very little learning in either the safe space because we feel good. There's no need for growth in that space. Everything fits well. There's also very little growth in the danger space when our conversation gets too heated, when our brains actually stop taking in new information, doesn't allow us to grow, and so we just sort of shut down physically and emotionally. What we want to aim for is that yellow space where we're engaging in conversation and engaging with ideas that are stretching us a little bit past what feels safe and comfortable, but not so far past that we get into a space where we're shutting down and not able to take in anything new. You know where that space is for yourself. And so I'm just going to encourage you to pay attention to your body here, to be trying to keep yourself in this yellow space. When you feel yourself, if you feel yourself in this red, maybe you want to take a step away, or maybe you want to ask for a little bit of help in helping you sort of get your head around things. If everything is very green for you, I guess that's great. And I might encourage you to interrogate some of your thoughts a little more deeply so that you're getting something out of our time together. And I love this quote from one of my favorite authors. The practice of love offers no place of safety. I'm a Unitarian Universalist. I know some other folks here are Unitarian Universalists. The core of our faith together is love. And so it is a space that I always like to be in, and encouraging us to live with love at the center, which means we want to push ourselves a little bit past the place of safety. Okay. Any questions before we really jump into the content of our time together? Okay. So I'm not able to do a technical poll here in Zoom. So I'm going to ask you again to use the chat to think about what's your comfort level. This is a temperature check for us to get a sense of who's in the room. My slide didn't adjust. What's your comfort level talking about race? Don't put your answer in the chat yet. Hold it. If you feel very comfortable, you can talk about this stuff all the time. Put a 1 in the chat. Don't hit enter. If you feel pretty comfortable, you've had a lot of practice, but you're not an expert, it still makes your heart race a little bit. Try 2. Moderately comfortable, you've had some good conversations, but you're not starting them. A 3. You are not at all comfortable talking about race. You cannot even believe that you are here tonight. Put a 4. And once you find your place in here, hit enter. Okay. We are getting lots of 1s and 2s, some 3s, and no 4s, because nobody made you come here? Of course. Okay. All right, we're a little all over. We've got some 1s, 2s, and 3s. Okay. I can deal with that. We can work with that. Okay, so I'm going to take a break from the slides because I've got a couple videos. So I think in order for me to do this well, I'm going to actually stop sharing, remove my slides. Voila, out of the way. Get my video ready here. Share again. I'm just like narrating the whole thing for you. Let's share this video and also sound. We're gonna hit share. We're gonna go, this will be about 5 minutes. And then we're gonna have some conversation about it.
It's very uncomfortable to talk about race. It's not something I do.
I am feeling apprehensive because I think there's a lot of reasons why I feel like I should be able to talk about race.
I don't want to say anything, you know, that would offend anyone.
It's a very touchy subject. It's still difficult, even if you feel like you're on the right side of it, to, to have a dialogue about it.
Especially for white people, because we don't want to see if the racism that we may be holding on to.
I don't know. Maybe I am racist. I certainly don't like to think that I am. And I think that's too because the perception, in this society, perception of a racist is a guy in a robe.
Now I understand that it's a system of advantages and disadvantages based on race. So as much as there's the disadvantage piece of it, there's the advantage piece of it, which is what I experience as a white person.
I want to bring up race, and I want to bring it up in a frame that helps my children think that there's no difference. But the mere fact that I might be bringing it up could suggest that there is a difference.
I remember asking a friend of my father's who's black why he was called black, because his skin was brown. And I've learned that lots of people that are white ask this question, and maybe they also received the answer that I got from my parents, which was like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry that she asked that, and it's just a term, like, move on.
One of my third grade students seemed pretty rocked after the Eric Garner case or death, and came up to me and said, why, when you were little, like, were you worried about this stuff too? And I knew what he was talking about before. I mean, I didn't say, what do you mean, what stuff? I didn't want to, play dumb. And I said, no, like, I didn't have to be, and that's not fair. And that was really hard because he just kind of sat there, and it honestly seemed like the first time that he had considered the fact that not everyone had to think about race all the time.
I know that I'm white, and I guess I'm part of that collection. But I don't think about being white. I don't.
I really did not know that I had a racial identity. I knew I was white. I had no idea what that meant, how that had shaped my outlook on life, how that had shaped my sense of optimism, sense of belonging, sense of safety, sense of feeling entitled to go help children that I thought were a part of a community that couldn't figure out how to help themselves.
I think that impulse, that kind of colorblindness impulse, comes mostly from white people. Like, I've never heard, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it comes from people of all kinds, but I've heard it most from white people who are saying, like, let's do this as a way of getting past this racism thing. And I think in part it comes from a sense of shame and guilt about what racism has done, and kind of how racism was built by white people.
I don't want to be ashamed of being, and plus I'm a male. It's like every group out there can be pissed off at me because I'm white and a male. And that's a weird kind of burden that some people do feel, and I certainly feel it sometimes from people that I'm privileged, I get stuff that other people don't get.
I think we're all implicated in a racist system, and I play my part in it as a white person. So I do have individual responsibility and accountability. I mean, I'm part of the system, and I do things that both perpetuate it, and I try to certainly do things that challenge it.
I realize I've never said anything. When I've heard racist jokes, when I've heard racist comments, I've never said anything. I've never spoken up and said, hey, that's racist. Not once.
In my mind, I'm not involved in any conflict that involves race. I've only been the beneficiary of it. So to talk about it is I don't think I would sound very wise.
Being white means that I have the privilege to think that I'm not affected by racism. Or that I don't even have a race, because I have all these other things like a gender and a sexual orientation, and those are pretty neat. So I don't have a race, but I do, and I'm white.
Okay, we have a couple minutes for big group conversation before I send you into your breakout groups. What did you notice? What resonated with you? How are you feeling? You can raise your hand or you can put a response in the chat. Let's see, Becca, and then Susan. Yeah.
It was very honest. And I think that's really important when we're looking at spaces like this, to be honest with each other about where we're starting from. I viewed race differently until my daughter started dating an African American man, and I had to kind of put my husband in line and explain that there are things we don't say in our house now, and we should never have. And I should have been strong enough to say that before there was a reason in the room. But there is a reason in the room, and we need to treat everybody with respect. And I think that's important. And when you get confronted with that, you got to be honest about where you're at with things.
Susan K. and then Susan S.
Yeah, it was interesting. The number of people in the beginning, I know they were the same people, but in the beginning saying they never thought about race or they didn't think they were racist. And I grew up that way and then became aware of race and am growing more aware over the years. And I know that I still have a ways to go. I think it's very important that we're talking about race.
Susan S.
A lot of it sounds very familiar to me, things I've heard from people before, such as I don't see race, or there aren't any differences between people, everybody's the same. And, that masks that's, as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah, I guess that's all I want to say right now, because I tend to be too verbose. So that's all I want to say.
In the chat, Earl Arnold says, it sounded very familiar. I've grown beyond most of that. And Bob Elliott says, people were mentioning white privilege. So I want to ask, we're going to put you in small group breakout rooms. You'll have about 10 minutes in your group, but I want you to take some time and think about the question before we put you in the groups so that you don't just automatically get jumped in and have people start talking. So in your group, you are going to tell a story. Well, let me put it in the chat first. You're going to tell a story about a time when you first noticed or became aware of race. This will likely be different depending on what race people identify as. So take a few minutes now to think of a story about a time when you first noticed or became aware of race. I think I have a little background music.
Yeah.
So as folks are returning, we don't have time for a lot of open share, but you can put a word or phrase of what you're taking from your conversation in the chat. a word or phrase in the chat about what ahas, what learning, what discovery from your conversation. Generational, experience matters. It's good to make connections. Racism is solid. Systemic, personal perspective, how deeply we're influenced to be racist, sensitivities to differences. Interesting to hear from a Jamaican where there are a multitude of races. Okay, you keep those in the chat. Now I'm going to show you a second video. And so I will share again. Share, share, share. This one. I'm going to share this screen. I'm going to share with sound. I'm going to hit yes. I'm going to full screen again, if I can get into full screen.
Racism means basically like
a large part of a race feels that they're superior to another race. And so not only do they believe that, but they act on it.
Examples would be in class. Sometimes I'd be the only black kid, and we read a book like, I don't know, Huck Finn, and then there's that uncomfortable moment, the magic word come up, and people would look at you and you're like, what's his reaction, and things like that.
I was walking home from school with this one white girl, and we just gotten off the bus, and we were almost home, and there were these group of black kids that just gone out of school. And she was like, oh, let's cross the street. There's a group of black kids. I don't want to run into them. And so she told me, which I don't even know why she would do that.
I used to wear a sweatband, like, just to reinforce my wrist. And I had a teacher come up to me and say, you should take it off because it looks gang affiliated.
I've been in situations where, you know, I had to cross the street because I didn't want to scare the white lady that was walking.
It would get to the point where I would start to count how many times a woman would clutch her bag.
When I was 16, I was leaving my mom's house in my pajamas, which had snowmen on them, with my brother, and we were actually stopped by the police rather aggressively.
I've been stopped by the cops on my way between classes because we have two separate buildings, walking from one building to the other building, as my white students in the same class walk by me.
It's kind of upsetting because we live in a world where my mom has to be afraid when I walk outside from the people that are like meant to protect me. And I don't like when my mother feels like that. You know, I love my mother. I want her to always be happy.
You know, I walk tall, I keep my head up, try to be very articulate and polite. And so, of course, I was like, okay, I'm going to be fine because I act a certain way. And of course, that has absolutely nothing to do with it. The way people perceive you, is not up to you.
My parents taught me, cops are your friends, you're supposed to, they're here to protect you, but all I'm seeing is the opposite. So how can I not be afraid when I feel like I'm being hunted? When I feel like I'm there to fill a quota?
We are in a so-called free society, and as a black man, we literally don't feel free. We don't know what freedom is.
Every time we're killed, the first thing you see on the news is, criminal record. Or something like that. So from the second the bullet hits us, already we're starting to be dehumanized.
With black people like myself, we don't get as many chances as they do. So you have to be aware and you have to watch out and you can't mess up.
This was an extremely emotionally taxing process for me in terms of coming to terms with maybe the nature of racism in my own life and in this country and in this world. And if you wait until somebody is 12, 13, and 14 to put that on them, it can be really difficult.
My dad, he's just like the honest one. He's like, listen, son, like there are things in this world, like you kind of have to watch out. He doesn't want me to live in fear. but he wants me to be aware.
I want people to know that I'm perfectly fine and I'm not gonna hurt anybody or do anything bad. I should be judged about like who I am and like and what kind of person I am.
My parents would tell me, especially my mom, she would tell me, you have to endure, you have to muscle through it. And this is no different. It's a part of being a person of color in America.
And there's a certain comfortability associated with that, because if I know that something is inevitable, then I know how to deal with it. Fortunately, I've had parents who have said, this is what you do.
Mom and Dad, I'll be fine because you did a good job raising me. You gave me all the resources and the time, the blood, sweat, and tears to make me a good man, an honorable man, and the foundation to survive in this country.
I want you to know that I will act in an appropriate manner and do everything that you told me to do because I do love you, and I know that everything you say is not for a reason and not just to talk, and I love you.
There we go. Okay. Different group of people, different perspectives. Same question. What do you notice? What resonates with you? How are you feeling? Oops, I lost you for a second. There we go. I thought I saw a hand, but it disappeared. Susan S.
Yeah, I think that after seeing that video, if I ever say to anybody, I understand how you feel, who's Black, my tongue should be cut out, seriously. The burden of living through life with that, in terms of the health ramifications, the psychological ramifications, it's, it's the strength of people that they've survived all this time. And to say to somebody, I understand how you feel. No, you don't. No, you couldn't possibly. So I thought it was a really good documentary, but it moved me a lot. I'm a retired elementary school teacher, and, it's painful that kids have to deal with this.
Michael?
Good evening, Rev. So I think I was very saddened by that commentary, and I really liked Earl's perspective that first of all it was all boys, and I thought that was very interesting. And the saddening part about it was that um, they were having to justify their existence, and that they were under the belief that if they acted in a certain way and if they behaved properly, that they were somehow going to be protected or made. And it's what is it? We call that code, right? Where you have to change and go into different behavior modes because of the environment and the context you're in. And yes, that's what we do because we instinctively taught how to survive and how to navigate through these different spaces. But it just was very disheartening to think that these young men, it almost seemed like they were being naive in some ways, that because mom and dad gave them the how to speak, how to behave in a context that they're going to somehow protect them. I'm 65 years old, and a year ago I was pulled over for driving while Black and was thrown on top of a car with guns pointed at me. And as I drove away, I realized that in all these years of my existence, very little has changed around the concept of color and how people are treated, regardless of how one behaves or acts. And, so thank you.
Thank you. We have some comments in the chat. Sad, heartbreaking, true, unfair, disturbed by the constant threat of violence against Black people, especially boys and men. They were somewhat defending their right to exist. The talk by their mothers was mentioned, but not made clear. That was a real deal. Other thoughts? Okay.
Definitely true.
Definitely
It was,
true.
it was excellent.
I'm going to return us back to Susan K, and then I'm going to move us back to slides, which will give us a little bit more time for questions about those. But Susan K, you're muted.
I just wanted to say that it's obvious that those boys had to be thinking about their race all in whatever groups they were. It was part of their consciousness, whereas white people can not think about race most of the time.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So there were a few of us who did not end up in a small group. And so we began to share our stories. We didn't get to me, but it was interesting to me that I actually am not entirely sure that the other people in my non-group would identify as white. But most of those stories landed somewhere in adulthood. My story was from when I was 4 years old. I was aware of race at 4 years old. So I'm going to move us back here. Let's see. Okay. Are you seeing slides? Awesome. Okay. So some words. And feel free to raise a hand to get my attention if you have a question. Don't feel as if you need to wait until the end. Okay. So a basic definition of race. A social construct that categorizes people into distinct groups based on physical characteristics like skin color, hair type, or social characteristics like national origin or ancestry. There are lots of ways that societies distinguish between different kinds of people. Historically, this has been done by citizenship or foreignness, for example, or religion, or along kinship or family lines. Race, as we understand it, something that is understood as natural, biological, immutable, starts to take shape only in the late 1600s in the colonies in this part of the world. And it gets created around this time as a way to justify exploitation of a particular group of people, Black people who have been brought over from Africa, as a way to other and dehumanize this group of people to make chattel slavery, the system of chattel slavery, acceptable. It would not be acceptable to treat other people in this way, people like, for white people who were enslavers, for Europeans who were enslavers, it would not be acceptable to treat other people like themselves in this way. And so they need a way to distinguish these people as different in order to justify the exploitation. So that's race. Racism is a system. One way to describe it is that it is a system of advantages and disadvantages based on race. Racism, though, is different than prejudice. Prejudice I might describe as preconceived judgments or opinions, usually, often, based on limited information. They result from stereotypes. Almost everybody, I think I might venture to say everybody, we all have some kinds of prejudices. We have ideas about people we don't know. We have ideas about things or places we don't know. Part of what leads to prejudices is lack of familiarity or experience with different kinds of people. Prejudice becomes racism when we add power to the mix. And so another way, if one way to talk about racism is that it is a system of advantages and disadvantages based on race, you might also think about it as racial prejudice plus institutional and social power. It is prejudice, how did I define prejudice? This judgment against somebody who is different, a category of people who is different, with the power to do something about that negative judgment. This definition becomes important because it helps us to think about racism as not only a thing that people do to other people, but as something that is deeply ingrained in systems and structures, and that is maintained in systems and structures. And I see I have something in the chat, so let me see if I can manage both chat and slides at the same time. Prejudice can be caused by ignorance. Because it will be challenging for me to manage chat and slides at the same time, if you do want to get my attention, just like unmute yourself and say something. So we have racism as prejudice plus power. There we go. I want to talk about 4 types of racism plus. One type is interpersonal. Acts of bigotry by malicious individuals. This is what I think most people on a basic common level understand as racism. People who are racist do racist things. We think about the KKK or white nationalists or skinheads. It is our most common understanding as interpersonal. But understanding racism as only interpersonal makes it seem like something that is remote, that is not us. I don't have bad thoughts about other people. I certainly don't act on my negative thoughts about a different group. I can't possibly be racist, nor could I possibly be implicated in racism. But racism works on much more than just an interpersonal level. There's also structural or institutional racism. Structural or institutional racism emphasizes that not only individuals, so actually, let me ask you. So I'll say 2 things. One way to think about it is that it emphasizes that racism is not only something that happens person to person, but that is ingrained in our structures. It also stresses how past inequality, past prejudice, past structural prejudice still drives our current inequality. Before I say more about that, I will ask you, can you in the chat give some examples of structural or institutional racism? I have some. Redlining. Who says redlining? Lisa, do you want to say what redlining is?
Hi, sure. Not that I'm an expert or anything, but my understanding is that real estate people would draw red lines around Black neighborhoods. And that's the extent of my knowledge of how that, why that got that name. But it ended up in enforcing segregation. They would only sell homes to people who were on, the designated side of the red line, as I understand it.
And it also had an impact on the value of a home in a neighborhood, which has implications for how one is able to generate wealth and pass that on beyond generations. I've got two hands, and then I'm going to move us on. Becca and then Earl.
I'll be real quick. I just wanted to say that also extends into places like insurance. Insurance companies will be told you can't insure homes or businesses in these neighborhoods because it's too dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Earl?
And it was put in place by the government. It was after World War II that it was the government who that identified different areas in each city, which and how much the GI Bill would how much they would cover the insurance, and in some areas they would not cover they would not insure the mortgage at all, but it was imposed by the government.
Yeah. I wanted to give you just a statistic to understand how these economic policies from 30s, 40s, 50s continue to have impact today. Today, the typical median white household holds more than 6 times the wealth of the typical Black median wealth of a Black household. Another way to say that is that the median net worth of a white household is $284,310. The median net worth of Black households, $44,100. Another way to say that is that Black households hold 15.5 cents for every $1 of white median wealth. This is the way
it's
that
deliberate,
yes.
and it's not like it's a policy that was put in place. It continues, it goes on. It's exactly right now, and it's everywhere, as far as I can see.
Here's another frame for thinking about ways to understand racism. Active. Similar to how we think about interpersonal racism, active racism is blatant, intentional acts of racial bigotry or discrimination. I'm sure you have some examples that you can throw into the chat. Active racism, like using racial slurs, or why is my do not disturb? For whatever reason, I do have do not disturb on and people are persistent. Sorry about that if you're getting pop-ups on your screen. Examples of active racism, blatant, intentional acts of racial bigotry, like using racial slurs, joining a white supremacist group. In policy, this might look like policies or laws specifically designed to disadvantage a particular race. What it looks like in immigration policy, for example, is limiting immigration from some parts of the world while encouraging immigration from other parts of the world. For example, removing temporary protected status from people from Haiti, welcoming white refugees from South Africa. That's what active racism looks like in policy. Passive racism, on the other hand, is more subtle acts of collusion. It's not challenging racism when we see it, or accepting racial discrimination as appropriate. It's also avoiding conversations around race. Can you throw some examples in the chat of passive racism that you've experienced? Like not telling a racist joke, but laughing at it.
I was being told by the union representative at my school that I'm not going to change the system that exists there. I just have to go away quietly. And so, yeah, I just have to go away quietly. I have to accept this. I'm not going to change it. It's just the way it is.
Yes. Other examples in the chat, not diversifying literature in schools. Primo example. Accepting as normal. Food deserts, not having access to healthy groceries, fresh vegetables. Environmental racism, right? Noticing where power plants are, noticing where data centers in this country are being built. These are more passive examples of racism. This is the plus. Not an example of racism, but anti-racism. If active and passive racism are actively engaging in discriminatory policies, going along with discriminatory policies, anti-racism is actively working to disrupt or interrupt racism, both interpersonal and institutional when we see it. The best example that I have heard of this is from, I think, Beverly Tatum, and she likens racism to an airport moving conveyor belt, that the walkway at the airport that carries people along. And so what active racism looks like is you are on the conveyor belt. We're all on the belt. Active racism looks like you're on the belt and you're walking in the direction that it's going. You are moving fast toward that racist outcome. Passive racism might look like you are on the belt, but you're just standing there. You're not actively moving yourself along that belt, but you're standing there and you're being carried along just the same. What anti-racism would look like is to be on the belt and to be moving in the opposite direction. To be actively moving against that tide of racism, both interpersonal and institutional. Can you think of examples for the chat that you have experienced or witnessed of anti-racism? Speaking out at people who are presenting racist behavior.
I was at a demonstration, which was supporting bail reform.
Mm-hmm.
And two young white girls came up, and from a distance they said, "What are you here for?" And we said, "About bail reform." And they said, "You're for it or against it?" We are for it. Well, my friend here, her boyfriend was killed because of a criminal who was released on bail. And she was very upset and angry. The one who was affected didn't want us to get anywhere near her. But there was a black minister in our group who went over and spoke to the girl who was speaking. And at one point, she told her that I know that you're not aware of the, I can tell that you're not aware of the racism that I'm talking about because of your white privilege. I don't have any white privilege. I'm not privileged at all. And they had quite an argument about it because the minister was adamant that, yes, you do have advantages just by being white. I don't know. So that was a very uh, powerful example of people being so unaware, and also an example of somebody insisting on trying to disrupt her racism and teach her at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Other people, can you think of examples? Or do you have questions? Because our 90 minutes is almost over. The Brookhaven Landfill Action and Remediation Group, which is working against environmental racism, supporting Black activists in their actions. So this is a group that is, as am I, concerned about class, economic class. I mean, the big class way move towards anti-racism is the big R, reparations for both Black and Indigenous people in this country. It looks different, but it's a thing. Marshall, Marshall, you have a hand up.
Thank you, Rev. Yeah, I really appreciate the person bringing up reparations because I think that is one of the most structural and one of the most meaningful ways to address the inequity, to put one's money where their mouth is. And I think it's something that really would go a long way in shifting the balance and the scales. But I was going to say, having just completed seminary and going into ministry, one of the things that I've found repeatedly is that to all of my non-melon friends in the room, the hardest thing that I find that white people have is to actually be able to listen to people of color and to actually hear them in a meaningful way and actually take instructions and leadership from them. That seems to be a very problematic thing. And I think, one can say some of my best friends are Black or, I belong to this group and that group. But when it comes to leadership and when it comes to taking directions, I think that's a real issue. So I put that out as an offer, an invitation to enrich the dialogue and the conversation.
An invitation. Melanie.
I come from the lens of coming from outside as a Jamaican immigrant, coming from outside the way that race plays out in this country. And I see work that needs to be done on both sides of the power structure, in the very same way that in white America there is that coming to terms with the benefits from this racial construct, then also empowering in Black America, as a mom now who have Black American sons, with the resources not to be paralyzed and crippled by all of the low expectations, the negative stereotypes, to somehow rise above that, to find identity in excellence and in striving and in reaching forward, outside of, like to say this is not, like this American construct is not the reality. This is one very flawed reality, but there is a whole other way of experiencing and being. And so I think, both things need to be taking place simultaneously.
Yeah, yeah. Beyond responding and reacting to racism, right? There is a space where people are living full and whole and empowered lives outside of systems of oppression altogether. Can you believe it's already 8:28? I don't
I'm
know.
willing to believe, Reverend, if you're, I know you have a prepared program, and I bet you haven't reached the end of it. And I bet that we are all willing to stay on and let you finish beyond 8:30. Anyone who needs to get off can get off, but would you like more time?
I am pretty good at keeping time. I have a question for you as we wrap up for the chat. One word for what you are taking away, recognizing that you all will be continuing this work without me, but one word for the chat for what you are taking away from this very brief evening. Persistence, gratitude, knowledge, allyship, conviction, reinvigoration, understanding, not giving in to the commonly held beliefs, love for our community, commitment to be actively anti-racist. I have one more. I opened with words from my colleague, the Reverend Julian Jamaica Soto. I will close with words from them as well, from that same book. I know that you are hungry for justice. And sometimes when you fail, it feels like the times when you open the refrigerator door, look inside and close it, nothing having met your appetite. But there is always trying again. There is the fact that one just act is the beginning, and together we can build another. The gnawing hunger for a different future is one that we feed in the present. Your diligence, your tenacity, your willingness to learn, not just know, but also do. Hunger shaping how you nourish, feeding one another with the long spoons of your compassion until you're strong enough to feed the part of the world that you can reach. May it be so. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me make an announcement to all of you. This was the first of some meetings and programs that we're going to have about racism. It's not a one-off and you go home and this is all you learn. We will be studying the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, and I hope that we can invite Reverend Kimberly to come back in the fall. I know that she has more to say and that we would all like to hear it. So be watching for the newsletter or emails announcing what's coming up. And thank you so much, Reverend, for getting us started.
My pleasure.